Hello, everyone. You are back with the Crooke Candle podcast, and we welcome you. I'm Trejen.
And I'm Jordan.
And today is Sunday, which is normally we release on Monday.
Monday, yeah, we release every episode on Monday at 5 a.m. That's when we release the audio podcast. But normally we do the podcast on Saturdays. That's how we've been doing it the past two times, rather. And
so we're a day late.
we're a day late, but it happens.
I have a reason though.
Yeah, what was the reason?
We went hard from summer fall weather to just rain and cold.
Right.
And it really, actually Thursday I was supposed to do a tattoo. It was my day off normally, but I had scheduled something and I was like, I just don't want to do this. I'm feeling what they call it, sad seasonal affective disorder or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seattle.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. I've never lived anywhere where I've experienced that, where the weather changes kind of abruptly and you feel like a little bit of change in your own psyche.
Yeah. Actually, before we continue, I actually have a comment to bring up because I actually promoted the podcast on my channel. By the way, I have a channel called Anime Hole, which is just my own personal thing where I do like analysis of like older retro anime and stuff like that, which I've been working really hard on. And I'm actually going to be producing the next episode in the next few days. And all that stuff. But I ended up getting a comment because I did like a YouTube short because that's like the best way for me to kind of like talk to my subscribers, and by making a quick little video that's like 60 seconds or like 15 seconds long. And someone actually mentioned in the podcast, you talk as if there is you talk as if there's a video version referencing your art and such from your link. I only see the audio versions. Is there a video version out there somewhere? That's from JK on my channel. I apologize. That was a mistake we actually made, and we didn't realize it until I got that comment. So, like, we're gonna make sure not to if we're doing an actual this podcast, we're not doing the video format.
Yeah, the deal is we recorded the last couple, but we haven't really worked out how we would do a video podcast yet. And so like this one, that's why I said, you know what? Until we work that out, there's no reason to record it. And then once we figure out the logistics of running a video podcast, then we'll tell everyone, hey, we're about to do a video podcast. This is where you can find us, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Exactly. So now here's the thing. There does exist actual video versions of the past two podcasts. It's just not available anywhere else. Yeah. Actually, we did upload episode 0 onto the podcast, but it's unlisted.
Yeah.
So, which that was on purpose.
We just want
to see how it would look.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good.
Yeah.
Everything that we're doing, we're trying to do it in a good way. We want to give you, a good value and something that's of a good quality. So we're just working out the logistics.
Yeah, but that's the thing about starting a podcast and just trying to grow it. It's just we're figuring things out as we're going along. DIY. I mean, we're just two people at the moment, so we're just figuring things out. And right now, the real focus is just trying to get an actual audience. But in any case, I think now is a perfect time to move on to the
segue.
Yeah, segue to the topics for the podcast. We have 3 of them, and I got the notes right here. So one of the things that I wrote down for ideas to talk about on the podcast was how do you know when you are on the right path as a creative, and how to know when you aren't. And I actually thought about that because Because in fact, I kind of talked about this already on the podcast. If you listen to, I believe, episode 0, I believe I mentioned this, because I mentioned the story where I did my Pat Labor 2 video on Anime Hole, and it just initially did not do well at all. And I was just super bummed. And I was bummed because I was thinking, I had this serious doubt where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm on the right path. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. I'm not sure if my content's good. You know, and it just made me think that maybe I wasn't on the right path. And it wasn't until I got that push from Almighty Lolly, who is on YouTube, which if you go to my channel, I actually feature him on my my featured channels page, because you know, I thank him for that, for actually giving me the rub, as it would be called. And it was when that happened that I saw all these people actually saying like, no, your content's really good, you just need more views. And so when I saw that, and even just other things like the way, you know, getting this podcast assembled and all that stuff, and just even, you know, the 3rd gen stuff, like it's with all this stuff kind of coming together that I kind of finally started to think like, okay, I think I am actually on the right path.
Well, that's why when I looked at that question, I was like, my initial answer was, you won't know that you're on the right path as a creative. Because I was like, well, what do you mean path? Like, there's so many different things you can do being a creative.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think that's kind of the thing. When I was younger, as a painter and showing my art in San Francisco and stuff, I had ideas for myself. I was like, yeah, by the time I'm 25, I want to, or, you know, I want to be able to be famous and have Mercedes Benz and stuff like that.
Right.
So things weren't working out like that. Was I on the wrong path? To me, it was more like, once you, it's making a commitment to being a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think probably, actually, it was when I was in Portland. I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, and this is based on years of being an artist, and you know, that's what pays the bills. I said to her, you know, I'm looking towards my future as an artist,
mm-hmm.
okay, or as a creative. And I remember saying, I don't even know if it's going to be, you know, tattooing or painting.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, because what I am is I'm open to any possibility around being a creative. You know, I like to write. I would love to write a book or do some screenplays or whatever. But, you know, I think I know my path is the creative, living as a creative. That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have specific goals that I want to attain.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think it's a little bit of a weird question. It's easier to answer the second part, which is how to know when you aren't on the correct path. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know that one. That one, the answer is you will know because you'll be miserable.
Right. Well, I think to kind of elaborate on the first part, like, because like I think, because to me it's I more recently I came to the conclusion that you'll know when you're on the right path when you're doing something, and opportunities are constantly presenting themselves to you, or like you're starting to get the positive reinforcement from what you're doing. And yeah, sometimes it'll take a while. That's the reality. Like even like my YouTube channel, people on YouTube, like it can take them years to like get just 1,000 subscribers, because they're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, you know, when to upload their videos and all these other things. You know, there's all these factors. And then on top of that, there's the thumbnail metagame and all that shit. You know, it's you know, it's a matter of just experimenting and learning until you finally get good at your craft. And
I think you nailed it on the head with the things start lining up.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, little story. I started tattooing professionally in 2003. 2002, I got laid off. I was in corporate for many years. And when I moved to Oakland, I got my first tattoo studio. No, excuse me, my first art studio. I was kind of tattooing people. And you remember that. Remember when it was just empty?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Staying in a tent inside of a building, stuff like that. So, and I had to build that out. And what I was doing was I was just making my dreams or activating the dreams I've had and making them realities. And the more I did it, the more things would happen to me. And as a matter of fact, before I started professional tattooing, I would make my own needles and, I would solder them the whole 9 yards, and then I would bag them in sterilization bags. And then I'd take them there was a couple of shops in Oakland that they would sterilize them, but I'd have to pay for it. And they were always real weird about it because I wasn't, to them, a real professional artist yet. So they didn't really want to help me. So I kept thinking about, man, I need an autoclave. I need an autoclave. And an autoclave is a sterilizer to sterilize medical equipment. And they're quite expensive, brand new, probably around $2,500. So I kept thinking about that, but I kept moving forward. And I ended up getting laid off late 2002. And it was during that time I'm like, I need my own autoclave. This one day I was on the BART, which is the light rail kind of. And I get off at 19th Street Station, 19th and Broadway. But it's underground, so you can get off the train, and if you go up one way, you exit on 19th. If you walk all the way to the other exit, you get off at 17th Street. And I lived on 17th and Madison. So I'm walking and I get on the escalator, I go up, and it's the 17th Street exit.
Right.
And I take maybe 2-3 steps off of this escalator, and I look down on the curb, and there are 2 autoclaves sitting there. And I'm like, what the hell? And I kind of like look around, and I'm like kind of baffled because it's funny. It was just the thing that I needed, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the? So at first I was like, okay, perhaps they put them there and they're parking their car or something like that. And then I started walking away. And then I looked to my left, the building that's to my left, it was a dental office. And I had gotten off on that street, that exit before, and they had been refurbishing it. And I look over at it, and like all the wood's down, everything's all pristine. And it looks like they're about to reopen. And I'm like, wait a minute. I bet they got brand new stuff.
Yeah.
And this is their old stuff, and they're just putting it on the curb. So I go back and I start looking at these autoclaves, and this one was perfect. And this is the funny thing about being an artist. I talked myself out of it. I actually told myself, wow, well, this thing's kind of heavy, and I have to walk 5 long Oakland blocks to get home. It was like a quarter mile, seriously.
Right, yeah.
And so I walk away from the thing, and I hit the corner, and there's a shopping cart. And I literally looked up into the sky and yelled, okay, I get it. And I turned around, grabbed it, threw it in the shopping cart, walked it all the way home. And most of the way home, I was just so baffled that this had happened.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this can't work. It's got to be broken.
Right.
There's got to be something wrong. I was poo-pooing it the whole way.
Right. No, I get it.
But literally, things like that continued to happen for me. There was within Studio Absu, I had that full bar, and I was having I had a speakeasy, and we would have private parties at my art studio. It was awesome. These guys, Chimica Spiritists, would come from up here down to the Bay Area, and they'd brew all their own stuff, and had an amazing time. Met a lot of artists, and it was that's when I definitely knew I was on the right path,
right?
Because it does, and I'm not all into that secret stuff, but it does tend to work like that as a creative, as you are going for it, things are going to open up for you. And if you refrain, and this is, I think, how the universe works, or just energy, if you have a talent and you refrain from engaging it and trying to make something of it, then the opportunities that would be put in your way if you were trying to accomplish this goal, they won't go to you. They will go to someone else who is trying.
Yeah, it'll go to the people that are putting in the effort to actually
that's how it is.
Succeed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because, and like, I guess also kind of getting onto the idea of like, how do you know when you're not on the right path? I think part of it is it's kind of like an in-between where it's like, there's this, like, for example, I guess an example I want to mention, I guess, like mixed martial arts. So there are plenty of people that in MMA or boxing or whatever, competition, where they train. There are people that train real hard because that's where they want to be. They want to be a professional and they want to become a champion. They want to be the best of the best. And the reality is that there are people that will try super hard and will never make it to the top. Like say Paul Felder in the UFC, like really good fighter. When he started doing MMA, he became a champion in one of the outer, lower end promotions, and then he got the call to the UFC. And he was busting people's faces and doing pretty fucking good. But then he just started fighting the topper echelon of the sport, and he didn't have it like them. Like, he just wasn't winning. But eventually,
which means he was putting in more effort than the lower guys, so he was winning, but wasn't putting in the effort that the top guys,
or he just wasn't as gifted. And that's another reality of life, is that some people are more gifted, but that's not to say that you shouldn't try.
Right.
But to get back to him, like, yeah, he didn't become a champion, and he didn't get to the top of the sport in the way he wanted, but he had knowledge. He's really smart. He's a really good talker, and because of that, he became a commentator for the UFC. So he's still in that
part
sphere.
Of that world. Yeah.
He's still part of that sphere. He didn't get to be on the exact path he wanted to be necessarily,
right?
But he's still on that path, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And so I think I use that example to tie this back to the topic, which is how do you know when you're on the right path and when you know when you don't, and stuff like that. And I think part of it is you'll know inherently, because I know inherently the thing I like to do, the thing that feels right to me, is being a creative-minded person, whether it's drawing, whether it's my video editing, whether it's doing this podcast, stuff like that, writing, like whether it's stuff like that, I know that feels right to me. Just being in that kind of sphere, that makes more sense. Now, does that mean I will be successful in all of those facets of being a creative? I don't know. It really depends on how much work I put into one thing or another. And it also depends on how things kind of work out. Because I've also learned as an adult that sometimes just things change. Sometimes things just work out differently than you imagined in your mind.
Well, that actually leads us into the second kind of topic, which was...
What was it?
How does one take control of their creative fate?
Right.
And I'm asking you, because I know that in our last podcast, you mentioned, dreaming of being a creative and actually having people that would tell you, no, you cannot do that. But at a certain point, you made a choice, and that involves taking some sort of control of your creative fate. So how did you do that? When did you do that?
That's a good question. I think it's a multitude of things that caused me to want to commit to going into that field, or just being a more, just saying to myself, this is what I'm going to do. I know this is what I want to do. And that's the thing. Like, there was a point in my life though where I like Portland, for example, because like when I left California, I was thinking I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try to make YouTube my job, or whatever stupid shit I was thinking. And but of course I was still green. I didn't know shit. And then Portland, that was when I was learning how to become an adult, because I was super green. I just didn't. Just for context, when I was living in California, I was still living with my mom up till I was like, what, 23, 24?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which is normal.
Which
these days.
Nowadays, yeah, it's pretty normal, just because of the way things are in America.
Living on the West Coast is quite expensive.
Yeah, especially California. Like, I can go on about how expensive California is. Like I want to say the last time I went to California, and that was when the last time I saw Mom in California, she took, this is an aside, I know, but like she took me to this, like it's not a mall, but it's like an outside mall kind of deal. I forget what that's called. A plaza, I guess, if you want to call it that. And there was this apartment complex that was being built, and it said, and I had to do a double take on this because it was crazy. It said, for one bed, one bath, it's $5,000 a month. And I'm just like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like, I'm like, is that how expensive it's gotten since I've left?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, holy shit.
I mean, there's a lot of, because of tech, there's a lot of people they got kind of deep pockets.
There's someone that's going to afford it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's ridiculous. And that's why.
Well, if you're a normal person with a normal budget,
yeah,
or just not that kind of tech money.
Yeah. If you're bringing in middle class money, you can't even attempt to scratch that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, at that point, it's like, don't even bother living in California.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I left. To be honest, it was just like, even just the idea of like trying to get an apartment out there, like, just didn't seem feasible for me at the time. That's why I was living with Mom up to that point.
Yeah.
But anyways, I left to Portland, and then I was dealing with my own hardships and having to learn how to be an adult and all this stuff, and, really evaluating my life. And there was this point in my life where I was kind of having doubts of like, maybe I'm not going to be an artist, because there was that point where all I was doing was working two jobs, or working between two places, rather, just to work like 50 hours to just make enough money to be able to save money and all that stuff, and pay bills and rent and all that. And I just was miserable. So there was a big point, because like, there's a point in my life where I was drawing like almost every day. And then all of a sudden I just stopped drawing. And I stopped drawing because it's just all I was doing was work, because I had to pay bills, and that's all I could really do. And so, it did make me question that. But then, but when I finally moved out to Seattle, and I became much more older and learned a lot more by that point, I think it was, and then on top of that, when you mentioned third gen too, like when that idea came up and stuff, amongst other things, like, that's when I kind of thought, well, you know what? There is a way to become what I want to be. It might not be how I envisioned it, but really all it comes down to is just putting in the work, and as long as you have the desire and the love in your heart to do it, or hell, even maybe not even love, maybe you don't even go in that far with it, but rather, does this feel right to me? Is this the thing? Because that was the thing I had to ask myself, which was, does this feel right to me? Because whenever I would work a job, like, in fact, just for context too, like, most of my work experience up to this point, just working normal jobs, was working in the restaurant industry. And I've worked in pretty much, well, aside from like serving, I worked at pretty much every back kitchen job, which is like, doing dishes, doing the line, prep cooking, stuff like that. In fact, the first job I got out in Seattle was for this place called Waterways Cruises and Events. And it was for making food for boat people to take like dinner on boats, or whatever, like fancy dinners on a boat in the middle of the
like Lake Union.
Yeah, Lake Union. Yeah. It was cool. It was cool for what it was. But it was when I did that, I started to really evaluate myself, because like there was all these other prep chefs and stuff like that who really liked doing the job, who really liked to cook, who liked to prep, anything to do with food. They loved it. In fact, I remember there was this guy, Abdullah. He was a really cool guy. And like I was using just the knives that they had. That was just the stock knives they had there to like cut meat and all that stuff. And they were kind of dull, so I'd have to like sharpen them all the time. And Abdullah, who I think was he Middle Eastern? I don't know.
Sounds like it.
He might. He was very dark skinned, but he could have looked black, but he could have been from Egypt or somewhere or something like that. So I don't know exactly where he's from, but he's like, you should get your own knives, or however his accent was. I don't. You should get your own knives. Like they're much better.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this kind of job, you should invest in knives. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to invest in knives, and it was at that moment when he was saying that to me, I'm like, I said, I looked at myself and I looked at him, and I'm like, he loves his job. I don't love my job. This job, that being the restaurant industry, I don't love it. I don't love it at all. In fact, even with this recent job, I work as a dishwasher. I'm not gonna say where, but I work as a dishwasher. It was funny. Like, now I'm making pretty decent money to be able to afford living here and paying my bills and all that. So I'm not making shit money for what it's worth. I'm actually making pretty decent checks. I remember Rob, actually I'm not going to say her name. I was going to almost say her name. I'm not going to say her name. One of the server managers like came up to me and was like, don't you want to work on the line? And I'm like, nah, I don't want to. Like, and the reason I said that, and I bet she was like, why would he say that? But in my mind, I'm like, because I don't have the heart to do that. That's not me. That's not what I want to do. As far as the job I'm doing right now,
working on the line is doing what?
Well, you're making food, cooking, yeah, okay. Basically. And it's like, yeah, I could do that, but to me, I don't have the heart for it. That's just not where my heart is.
Yeah.
So to me, if I can just make a decent check doing dishes, I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
Because as long as I can do that and save my money, because the reason I'm able to do that job right now is just because I've compartmentalized in my head that that's not my job. That's my side gig.
Well, it comes down to a lot of times, I know for myself, it's how it sounds. Like, like for example, one person could work on a line, right?
Right.
And when someone asks, "Oh, what do you do for work?" they can be like, "Oh, I'm in the culinary arts. I'm a line cook."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Make it sound good.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. And you're not like, "Oh, I don't want to do that because dishwasher sounds much better." It's
no.
It's when someone asks you, "Oh, what do you do?" You say, "Oh, I'm the head of post production at Third Gen Media, and I produce a podcast called Crooke Candle with my day." I mean, that's what you want people to hear, because that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to do.
And actually, a perfect example, talking about being on the path. I have been painting and showing artwork since 2000, and I've been drawing my whole life. And definitely during the pandemic, it got me really thinking, because I have a bunch of art paintings that are, more than halfway done, but I haven't finished them because I'm normally engaged in tattooing, and because that takes a lot of my time. And so after 20 some odd years of tattooing, there is I love tattooing. I love it. Is it my passion? No. Is it part of my path? Yes. Mm-hmm. But is it the path? No. Because what I'm really, truly passionate about is being a successful, you got that? I got it. Yeah, I can hear all the noise. Sorry. To be a successful painter, you know. I'm waiting for you to stop because I don't want it to be part of the recording. Okay. So,
well, it's not. I have my off. Okay. I was off air for that, so it's not gonna pick up.
Okay, but let me get back to that. So yeah, even once we've moved into this place, which was 8 months ago, and I'm working at Northwest Creations in Ballard, great little tattoo spot, but I'll sit there and I'll look at my paintings, and all I can imagine is doing that. It's the thing I've wanted to do forever. And I think like forming Third Gen Media was a way for me to begin exiting out of my career as a tattoo artist into something else that I like very much. I love, filming and telling stories and doing a business around that. But those things and monetizing these parts of our business, those things have been set up so that I can, within the next 5 to 10 years, be free to just focus on painting. Right. And I had to reevaluate and adjust time schedules and change the way I thought about things, in order to, look to the future for myself as far as what I want to do, is what I really want to do as a creative, and what is my path. And again, my path is to get to a point in my life where I have a nice house with a garden maybe, and a space where I can paint, and I paint my heart's content and show maybe twice a year and do well.
Right.
That's my path that I'm on. But to be quite honest, and I think I was probably about in my early 40s when it kind of dawned on me that it wasn't about being rich or famous, or having things. It was more about attaining a lifestyle that most people can't, or it's just completely alien to them. Like, that's why a lot of people, they're attracted to people who are artistic, because you're doing something that's almost ludicrous. It's hard to do, because in life, most often people want to do the exact same thing as everyone else.
Or right. Do the easy thing.
Yeah. They want to be looked at in a certain way. Whereas the artist doesn't really, do that as much. Right. I know I'm just like, if I get to 75, 80 years old and I'm on my deathbed and I can look back over my life, I will be fine with passing on into the undiscovered country, as long as I've lived my life as an artist, because I've known since I was very young that this is what I want to do, and this is what I want my life to be.
Right. It feels right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say I took my own creative power. Let me see. My own creative fate into my hands. It really did kind of start with working professionally as a tattoo artist, believe it or not. Mm. Because once I had, and I know we're trying to get you to this point, and although I can tell that you're just totally committed,
yeah.
But the moment you are making money, being creative, and it's your own, it's the blood and sweat and tears of you. Mm-hmm. It's not, and it's done in service of you, not in service of anyone else. When you attain that and you're paying your bills like that, you can't. I could never go back to a regular job. That's why beginning third gen, I'm like, oh, start a production company. I'm in control of it and it's creative.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I was like, I need you, Jordan, because you have this talent, which is pretty much just kind of a hobby for you, and you're super good at it. And we could make a whole business out of this. And you were like, whoa, oh my goodness. You never really thought about it at that level.
No.
So, you know, I think that was kind of my own, the way I took my creative fate into my hands was to do something I didn't want to do, because I didn't want to initially be a tattoo artist. Being raised religious, tattooing was bad. And even in the 80s, when I was in high school, when kids start getting their little tattoos or doing stick and pokes, I was totally against tattoos. So, you know, it was literally the last career that I would have thought, you know, but, and I'll tell you this because this is another little quick story. When I finally started getting tattooed myself, I think I was 23. And the artist that tattooed me ended up seeing some of my artwork and immediately was like, do you want an apprenticeship? Because I can draw, right? And I said no, because I didn't want to be a tattoo artist. And then he said, oh, you gotta show my homeboy Adrian Lee your stuff. Adrian's really quite famous now, and back then he was tattooing, starting to tattoo. And I ended up meeting him. I brought my portfolio, and same thing. He immediately was like, dude, you want to apprentice? And I said no. And fast forward a couple years, and I think this is important for creative people. You kind of got to go with the flow.
Yeah. Sometimes.
And I just remember I was reading a magazine, a tattoo magazine, because by this point I had 2 tattoos. And my buddy Zebediah was playing his guitar. And that was when I'm reading this magazine, and I just vividly remember thinking to myself, I just got to figure out any way to do art and make money. And about 10 seconds later, Zeb stopped playing guitar and just said, hey man, how much would it cost me to buy you tattoo equipment? Now, what I just thought was, I'm open to any way of using my creativity and the way I do it and make money out of it. And swear to God, 10 seconds later, he offered. And I said, I don't know, but I could find out. And he said, you let me know, you come up with a number and I'll cut you a check. And literally I found a kit and told him, and he took me to Wells Fargo and cut me a check. And that started the whole thing, and it was a hard process because it's hard. Again, I actually went back to the guys that offer apprenticeship at this time, and both of them were like, well, one of them was like, I had 2 apprentices and they both broke my heart. I taught them some stuff, and then they left and went work at some other shop.
Right.
And I think Adrian had an apprentice at that time and wasn't open to having another one.
Yeah.
But they both were like, we know you're serious and you're really good at what you do. So if you have any questions, ask, we'll answer. And that helped immensely. But it was just staying in the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically when I got my first job in 2003, I had been laid off in December, almost Christmas, 2002. And I got unemployment for 3 months, and it was running out, and I was stressed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to get a regular job. I'm not able to make this happen. And so I think I'm trying to remember if I was with Diane at this point. I can't remember. Anyways, someone said to me, well, reapply, see if you can get another 3 months. And so I did, and they gave me another 3 months unemployment. And it was at the very end. And again, I was trying my best to make something happen. And I got to that point where I was like, I'm going to have to get a regular job. And I was so dejected, and just out of nowhere, hey man, you want a job tattooing at this new tattoo shop? And I was like, whoa. But it was just holding on.
Right.
Holding on and staying focused and being a little ridiculous. You have to be a little ridiculous and crazy to try and do this stuff, because it's not the norm.
Right.
And people tend to, as a rule, they tend to follow the path of least resistance. So if they have fears around trying something new, instead of really going after it and sticking with it, that those fears and anxieties might make it to where they just go back to the thing that they know. And that's when you've thrown in the towel and you haven't grasped on to your own creative destiny.
Right.
Yeah. This is chess. This ain't checkers.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, the thing is, like, well, there's multiple things I wanted to say while you were talking, but like even you said it, like, you didn't envision yourself as becoming a tattoo artist. That was just something that happened. But the thing that you did, which is something that people can learn from, because that was something I didn't think about. Because growing up, being an artist or being a video creator or whatever, I had this linear mindset of how I could go about making that a living. Like, so for example, when I was doing like digital art for a while, I thought, well, the only way to do that is just to make commissions and, all that stuff. When that's not the only way necessarily. That you can do that, but that's not the only way. And as far as like video creation, it's like, yeah, you can try to make videos and hope that one of your videos goes viral and you get like millions of subscribers, but that's a very rare chance that's going to happen. But there are ways you can take your skills and how do you say it, shop them, leverage them to other things to make give you a living, so to speak.
Oh, that's like, I was talking to a guy I was just tattooing the other day who works at Microsoft, and we were talking about how it's common for these big companies to hire people that haven't went to college for some of this stuff that they know. And they're like, well, we'll teach you the rest, but you have a grasp on some advanced stuff, and whammo, you want a job?
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely how you and again, I'll say this though, the thing that I want more than ever is this dream. And you know what? I've seen so many people who've had it say a dream like mine. I want to be a painter.
Right.
Okay. And they have same thing, a linear timeline. And when they aren't making it,
right.
Because I know many people, because in the Bay Area, there's many, many artists. I know many, many people who they wanted it, and maybe they'll come back to it. That's totally a possibility, because I had you guys when I was really young.
Right.
Okay, so I know a lot of people that within the last 10 years, say, have had kids. Which definitely, and so once life really starts giving you responsibilities, then taking big chances becomes harder and harder.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's why when you're a young artist, as long as you don't have any responsibility, you go jump, trains and spray paint stuff and do all this all these crazy things. And who knows what life is going to get or give to you because you're on this path. But if you have a certain tight view of how your life's going to play out, and it's not playing out like that, it's very easy to get discouraged and give up.
Yeah, actually, something popped in my head because this actually goes back to the whole how do you know if you're on the right path or not? Because I think one of the trappings that people, like even me, I fall to this as well, which is one of the trappings people fall to is they have this goal, right? Whether it doesn't matter what it is, really. They have this one goal. They're like, I want to be this, or I want to do this. And so they're just looking at it as a straight line to that, just going down that line. And if anything else comes up that, so for example, you have your dream of wanting to be a painter, and doing that. But you also did, which I think is smart, you actually used your abilities to parlay that into another career to allow you to do something else in the meantime within the same realm, and you can make money and pay rent and pay your bills while you're also working on your goal
towards the ultimate,
to be a painter.
Yes.
And that I think is the smart way to do it. Whereas younger kids or younger people, they just go, no, it's like opportunities can present themselves to them, but it's
all
not
the time.
all the time, but it's not exactly what they want. So they make the mistake of going, no, I'm not going to do that, because if it's not this, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. It's perfect example is like wanting to be an actor. Mm-hmm. And you've got headshots taken and you're going to readings and stuff like that, but you have to have a regular job. Mm-hmm. Okay. If someone said, hey, I run this catering company and we cater on the lot of Warner Brothers for all the movies, do you want the job? And you were to go, no, that would be ludicrous.
Yeah, it would be stupid.
Because literally you're putting yourself where all the people are.
Yeah.
And just like, again, in life, you want to be that thing, you got to be around those things.
Right.
Well,
hell, even just growing up, I told this story to you. I don't think I told the story. Actually, I did. I think I did on episode 0, but I'll say it again. But even just doing a thing, and you being good at it, and then telling people what you do, that even just stuff like that can present opportunities to you that you may never have had. I think the mailman might be here. Is the mailman here, Bishop? Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But yeah, just even by doing that, just telling people, oh, I do this podcast. They're like, oh, really? That, it's like, and back in Portland, when I was telling all my Safeway workers about it, it presented this opportunity of people who wanted to be on the podcast, stuff like that. And because of that, it also allowed me to make more friends and stuff like that. So instead of just having this linear mindset about what I was doing, you open yourself up. When you open yourself up to opportunities, things present themselves to you, and that can be beneficial to you and your goal. So I think because I think especially when you are trying to be on this one path, and I think what makes people quit and think and have all these doubts and go, maybe I should just work a normal job, is when they have this goal in their head, and they stick so narrowly to that whenever it doesn't fucking work every single time, they just go, well, I guess I should just give up.
Yeah, well, that can be,
and that's a
actually
deadly.
It can be a mindset for a self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say this, and the thing that anyone that's creative, and I've had people say this to me, but they will say something like, "This isn't for everyone." Not everyone can do that, and it is kind of true.
It is true,
And as a matter of fact, when I was tattooing, one of the things that people would see before I was even tattooing, I was just kind of thinking I wanted to get into it. Mm-hmm. They would see my artwork And then they would say, I had maybe only 3 people said this, but they were already tattoo artists. But they would say, oh, well, you might be a good artist, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good tattoo artist. Okay. Now, over the years, I've revisited that statement because I'd always be like, why would they say something like that?
Right.
And after tattooing for so long, I'm like, yeah, I guess that could be true. They might not have known me that well to know how hard-headed I am about accomplishing things and thinking, this is hard. And if you could be a good artist, but you might not have what it takes to interact with clients every day.
Right.
I don't know if you're painfully shy. And then part of me was like, are they trying to, one, inspire me? Like, is this kind of reverse psychology?
Right.
Or were they legitimately trying to discourage me because they were kind of jealous of what I was able to do?
I think it could be a little bit of both.
It could. I think it was, because I never understood. I'm like, if you're really artistic, like, you should be able to do something with it.
Yeah.
Unless you don't have the ability, to again be. What's the word I'm looking for? You have to be like Bruce Lee, be like water.
Be like water, yeah.
You have to be able to flow and crash. And, so there are going to be people. The best way I can put it is I love, one of my great loves is MotoGP. You know this, okay? And it's best motor racing on the planet. There, I'm gonna put that there.
Yeah, I'm just fucking around.
Valentino Rossi, 9-time world champion. Okay, now there were these things that the media would call the top 5 guys.
Yeah,
they call it the aliens. And it was Valentino Rossi, Casey Stoner, Jorge Lorenzo, Danny Pedrosa, and Dovizioso, say.
Okay.
Now, Valentino, Casey, and let me get that right here. Valentino, Casey, and Jorge were all won world championships.
Right.
Danny Pedrosa, the little samurai they call him, he would beat you. He won so many races, but he retired just last year.
Okay.
With 0 championships. Not even one. Now, I don't think he cares. I think it's something like he'll be able to be like, never was able to get that. Came in second, never won it. So he had a level of talent that was at the very pinnacle, and he could beat people who became champions. Was something wrong with him because he didn't? No. Life happens. Fate kind of intervenes. Things happen, and again, these kind of things are really, they're going for the absolute pinnacle of success in something. For example, tattooing. I love tattooing. Am I passionate? Is it my passion? No, I know it's not.
Right.
Because if it was, I would be striving for the pinnacle of being a tattoo. I would want people to look at me and go, he's the best.
Right.
Or one of the top 3 or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's what that tells you a lot. Yeah. If you're like, I'm not, this doesn't make me want to be the absolute best or to strive for that. Mm-hmm. If then it can be something creative that you're doing, but that's not, it's part of the path. It's not the path. The path is the thing that's going to lead you to your ultimate goal,
yeah,
as a creative person.
On the road to your goal, there's all these side paths that you can take. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those are necessary to take. Mm-hmm. But eventually they will wind back up to the path that you want to go. Yeah. And that's the best case scenario.
Yeah. I mean, and it was funny, like, again, talking about painting, I really got into painting, and this is outside of like high school because I never went to college for it, in 2000. And I have continued to paint. I went through a period of time where I showed art, and then there's been many years that have went by I haven't shown anything. Like if you come by my house or go to the place I'm tattooing, you might see my paintings on the wall, but I'm not showing them, you know. But that was the funny thing. I realized that with the formation of Third Gen and starting Crooke and Candle, I finally realized, I'm like, oh my God, these things that I'm doing now are part of the path. And I kind of almost lost sight of it, because the path for me is to get to a point where I'm a living, working, successful painter. I want to make a mark. Just like if I was a musician, I would want to make a record. I want as many people to hear it as I could.
Yeah.
You know, and I want them to talk about it. I want it to be good enough to, when I leave this planet, there is a record of me that I did something.
Yeah.
So that's always been a very big impetus for me to want to paint. That is the medium that I want to leave a record of who I am.
Yeah.
If there's other ways of other mediums and I can do that too, heck yeah, I'll do that. But, you know, there is this one specific thing that I've wanted to get to. And in the end, I realized, oh my God, it's this circle. I'm coming around to the thing that I wanted, you know, and for so long, I almost lost sight of that was the thing, you know. But I'm going to get us on to our last topic for today.
DIY, working within the limits you can control.
Why? Oh, well, I mean, basically, as we're sitting here talking about taking control of our creative fate,
yeah,
you know, and the paths we're on, I would say that, again, if you're waiting for some perfect moment or perfect situation to come along so that you could do this thing that you have a passion for, you're wasting your time. You have to figure out how to do it yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And eventually, if you're doing it yourself, but you're able to take projects and creative outlets and start them, manage them, and complete them, the more often that you do that, the closer you're going to get to a point where you'll go from doing it yourself to doing it with, say, a bigger production or a bigger budget or whatever. And I actually kind of wanted to talk through a little bit of what we did, because I know that for Third Gen, I got a loan, which bought us a lot of the equipment. And then since then, I've spent a couple $1,000s on learning and more equipment.
Yep.
We've done podcast. You've done podcasts before. We're talking about the old DIY, you know, duct taped microphone and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. I mean, this is still DIY.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing is right now we've upped the production.
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of money we put into
and you put a lot of money into money in it.
I did.
And that is what you have to go and get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to come to you. If you really want to do something and you want to do it right, you have to.
It's on you.
You have to be willing to do the research to learn what you need or what you need to do to achieve what you want, and then you do it. Mm-hmm. Like there's a specific person who will not be named that we know that and I'm not saying his name because I don't want to throw him under the bus. But there's a specific person that I knew in my life who he would talk about doing all these things he wanted to do, whether it was rap or stand up or I don't know, graffiti, shit like that.
Graffiti, yeah.
And which the graffiti thing, which, that just comes down to being a good artist, if anything, So, but, which you can make art, you can make something out of that. But the way he was going at it was maybe not the smartest. But, as far as like the stand up and like rap thing, it's like, he would talk about it all the time, and he would show me like, oh, look at all these sick bars I wrote and all this shit. But then when it really push came to shove, it's like, okay, what are you doing with it? Like, are you actually going to open mics? Are you actually, doing your, going to rap battles? What are you doing? Like, hey, I think you even called him out, and it's like, hey, rap me a few bars.
I actually said just rap a song that you didn't even write. You just know. Just perform it.
Yeah.
Perform a Tupac rhyme
right.
that I'll hit play. You just rap along with it, and he wouldn't do that. Yeah, I mean, again, see, this is something you have to figure out what your motivation is, and if your motivation isn't correct, but you want to do something creative, you're not going to accomplish the thing that you want.
Right.
For example, when a person wants fame, they want pats on the back.
Right.
That is why they dream of being creative, to get pats on the back.
And here's the thing. There is a part of even what I'm doing. There's a part of that where even like, or say my YouTube channel, like part of why I do my YouTube channel is because, I do want people to watch my shit and go, hey, this stuff's really good.
Yeah.
And that does make me feel good. I do feel good knowing that there are people watching my shit and then giving me compliments for it.
But I would say, but I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, sure.
Because I see you do this. You come up with a concept.
Yep.
You plan it. You script it.
I put in the work.
You do. And so when a creative person does all the things to produce basically a product, it's a product of them, what they do.
Yeah.
Finally getting it in front of other people's eyes and them seeing it and having a reaction. Wow, that's cool. Da, da, da. That is a good reason why we do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That does feel amazing. And again, if you want a positive reinforcement for doing stuff, start it, work through it, manage it, complete it, put it out there, let people see it. You will get the most positive reinforcement that there is.
Yeah, there's nothing worse.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than getting in your own way. Like you're saying you want to do a thing, but then you get in your own way and you have this dream in your head, but you're not willing to do it because you are afraid to take the risk. Mm-hmm. That there's nothing to me. Here's the thing. Like even if which in my head, I don't think any of this is going to fail because in my head, failure is not an option. Because at the end of the day, as long as we just keep doing the work, we're going to get something out of it. As long as we work hard and we put our heads to the pavement and what's the phrase go that put the
knife to the grindstone.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever.
Rubber on the road.
Yeah, something on the pavement or whatever. I forget what the actual saying is.
Wheels to the pavement.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I think that's what it is. Whatever.
Something.
Point is, like, to me, the most humiliating thing I could imagine is dreaming something and then not doing it and knowing that someone else did it and I didn't, and they got the reward out of it. Because like. Believe me, it's like I understand it's scary to put yourself out there, and even then, it's like growing up, I was one of the most shyest I'm still shy, but like I'm much more confident in myself now. Like I remember just the idea of like getting in front of like going up front of kids in class to do like a class speech or a presentation. Oh, that shit sucked so much. I hated it, but I did it. That's the thing. As scary as it was and as nerve-wracking as it was and as much of a... as it was, it sucked, but it built character. And it put myself out there, I could have done more as a kid, but whatever. Point is that everyone has their own human experience growing up, and they have to, take steps at their own pace. And but in the end, I'm glad that I did everything I did, because it's like, you know what? I am seeing results, even if it's maybe not as quickly as I wish it was. I'm still getting results. Even just like with this podcast, like I go on to the Launchpad 1 distribution, which is how this podcast gets distributed to Spotify and Apple and Stitcher. And, just seeing that there's like over 20 people that will listen to each podcast. I'm like, fucking A. Like, it's not a lot, but 20 people is 20 people. And that's a good thing. That means if we can get 20, we can get 30. If we can get 30, we can get 50. If we can get 50, we can get 100.
Yeah.
It's just more about putting in the work.
Yeah.
And then doing what we need to do in order to achieve even better results.
Well, so kiddies out there that are listening, don't try this career path, but if you're become a drug dealer, next week, are you going to be a millionaire? No, you have to grind as the street parlance.
Don't do drugs, kids.
But yeah, I mean, you have to put in the work. And again, going back to that person, he wanted fame without work.
Yeah, that was the problem with him, is that he wanted the end result
without any of the,
but he didn't want to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I know, and here's the thing, like, this is not me shitting on him. I know this kills him. I know it does. It makes him upset. Because
the things that he's said, he could do.
He can do them. I know he
has
can.
to work at them.
Really, that's the thing, though. Like, here's the thing too. Another part of because we bring this person up, it's like, I know part of it comes with him doing that. It's more of a character flaw. And one of the things, and we even talked about this in the previous episode, which had to do with mental health and all that stuff, and the lonely artist stereotype and all that. And I mentioned self-improvement. One of the best ways to feel better about yourself is to constantly be looking to fix your flaws, or at the very least improve on the flaws that you have and make them work for you.
That, to me, that's the deepest form of self-love, which is important, is to acknowledge, take some responsibility and acknowledge who you are, where you're at, and then what you want to change, and then start making those changes. Find out we have so much information at our fingertips right now.
Yeah.
If you're lacking somehow, some way as a person, there's a resource for you to make changes in your life.
Sure. There's also a lot of bad information out there, so definitely be careful where you're getting your information.
Find reputable people. Exactly.
But scrutinize everything you see, obviously, and read. But I'm not going to go too deep into that. Point is, though, like as far as dude, we live in a DIY culture now. The reality is, we do live in this culture where it's much, because even just the fact that we're doing a podcast, before, to do shit like this, you had to be in a radio room. This shit didn't exist. The internet wasn't a thing at some point. Like, before, the idea of doing a podcast or even making YouTube videos, that was not a thing, really. Like, you wanted to make movies? Oh, okay, go to school to learn how to make film. And learn all these complicated shit, and then you can then maybe become a filmmaker.
Yeah. Same with music.
Or music. Changed. Yeah, same thing.
There's a world. For example, if you wanted to, let's say, because we do film, you wanted to start getting into telling stories through filmmaking. Okay. There is so many ways online to be making money nowadays, and a lot of people, I don't think they really grasp that. It's really a new world. And if you want to get to, you might be like, well, I got want to do my research, and I got a little bit of money that I could invest, and let's see if I invest this $1,000 into doggy coin or whatever.
Dogecoin.
Yeah. or there's just so many. I'm about to start researching NFTs and
right.
There's so much. There's so many different ways that a person can make money without tons of effort. And I know we're going to be talking about the upcoming metaverse in probably the next episode.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting talk.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I mean, it's people. The world's become very, very digitized to the point where if you put in a little bit of effort to learn some things, you can take what you know and turn it into a way of making you a stream of income that will give you the opportunity to, and again, we were just talking about this, is learning an online, some sort of online marketing, whatever it is, or drop shipping or whatever it is learning how to do that and starting to do that. Is that something that you would say, well, no, I don't want to do that because I want to make movies? Well, you have to have a job. So you could figure out how to do that, and you could spend a couple hours a day working online and making the same money or more than you're making as a line cook or a server or working in, the gym down the street, something like that.
Right.
You can make more, and then you can use the money you're making doing this, or even having that as a side bit of income, and it'll help you get to your dream. So don't ever, look the gift horse in the mouth, as they say. Opportunity. If you have the dream, stay focused on it. Opportunities are going to come that sometimes don't even seem to be related to your dream, but they are little stepping stones to get you to where you're trying to get. So always remember that. And with that, I think we're going to have to close it down because I got to go to my other job.
Right. Okay. Well, in that case, I think it's time to wrap this up. And I'm going to close this out with where you can find us on the internet. Our podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as Stitcher. You can also find all the links. Social media as well. We also have Instagram, and I haven't set this up just yet, but I'm going to do this today. We're going to have a Twitter as well as a Facebook account, which I need to set up. I'm in the process of setting that up, but once it's up, I believe we could even set the RSS feed to post directly to the Facebook page, if I remember correctly. Saw something about that. So yeah, we have all that. And all those links you will find in the description of the podcast. It is bio.link/Crooke and Candle, all one word, no ampersand, CROOKEANDCANDLE. So bio.link/Crooke and Candle. You can find all the links to our social media and our distributions right there.
Stay safe, kids.
Yeah.
Peace.